No, not Caris LeVert, one of the hardest workers I know. Ugh.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_Beeble. A lot to get to today. 9 games on Monday, a significant injury to an up-and-coming star player. Recapping all of that action, previewing Tuesday's games as well. There are 3 in the NBA for Tuesday. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed. We will start with
Monstrous line of the night.
It goes to Kevin Durant of the Golden State Warriors. Durant, without Steph Curry, did foul out in the overtime game against the Clippers, but still put up a very, very big performance. A triple-double, 33 points, 11 rebounds, 11 assists, 2 triples, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. The shooting wasn't great from KD, 10 of 24 from the field, and 11 of 13 from the line, though, is always a huge positive. So Durant gets his first, I believe, monstrous line of the night, stepping it up in Steph Curry's absence. He is just as rock solid as it gets. You know what you're going to get with Kevin Durant. He is the 7th ranked player this season, so maybe a little bit under. Actually, that's wrong. He is not the 7th ranked player. He is higher than that. Let me double check because I've got my wrong league selected on my Basketball Monster page. I'll get back to you with that, where Durant currently ranks. But he played 39 minutes before fouling out in overtime. He is the 3rd ranked player. There you go. That is better for this season, and the shooting percentages are insane, averaging 54 and 92 for Kevin Durant so far this season.
Waiver wire line of the night.
It's also the deep league of the night, and it is
My name is Jeff
Green. We always get one of these or 2 or 3 of these weird Jeff Green games during the season. 18 points on 6 of 7 shooting for Greeny, 6 rebounds. He hit 4 triples, had an assist, 2 steals, and a block. Did it all in limited minutes, only 21 minutes for Green, and played well and got the Wizards over the line against the Orlando Magic. I'm not looking at this and thinking this is any sort of change in rotation by Scott Brooks, although we'll talk about him a little bit later on and what's happening with those Wizards rotations. But surprisingly, Green is actually a top 120 player so far this season. Now, the main reason for that is because he is shooting 97% from the free throw line. So I'd have to think that that's not going to stick. In fact, I think he's missed just 1 free throw for the season, 31 of 32. So that's his that's his strongest fantasy category. His next strongest category is the fact that he's shooting 51% from the field, another number which would be a career high for Green. So 2 things there which are bound to reduce, and that's going to take him out of consideration for standard league. So again, it's always, you've got to have a bit of nuance when looking at rankings. You go, oh man, Jeff Green 113th, man, it must mean he's a must add. Well, I'm not sure about that. I don't think that we're expecting 97% free throw shooting or 51% shooting from the field, including 61% from 2-point range, to necessarily continue. And the other numbers, 11 and 5, less than an assist, 0.8 blocks, half a steal, less than a 3. There's nothing sexy to write home about there. The only thing propping him up are those percentages, which could very easily and most likely will come down pretty soon for Jeff Green. So a strong performance from him as your waiver wire line of the night and as your deep leaguer of the night. But strong, as they say, 16-teamer, maybe even 14-teamer, but you can't see him pushing into a 30-minute role or anything along those lines just at this point, but providing some solid value, especially on streaming type days, like say for example they were playing on Tuesday, which they're not, then he would have some nice value on that day. I have to tell you about the company who is sponsoring us today, and that is the great MyBookie. They've been fantastic with their support of this show and of the Locked On Podcast Network. So when you're looking for a place to go and spend your money using your superior sporting knowledge, MyBookie is the place that you should be going to. Who you're betting on is just as important as who you are betting with, and that's why you should be checking out MyBookie. They give you fast payments, trustworthy, one of the best and most trustworthy online bookmakers in the business. This is why you should be heading towards MyBookie. No worries about getting paid out and getting it done at a lightning speed. They have in-game live betting as well, and the most rewarding player perks in the business for you. And And hey, I was going to say all you fantasy guys, but that's us. You can bet the over/under on my bookie of how many fantasy points a player will score each game. So that's something that you can use to your advantage, and also using the basketball monster projections for that. If you join now at my bookie, they will match your deposit dollar for dollar up to $1,000. Put in $400, they will give you an additional $400, but you have to use our promo code, and that is Locked On. So go to my bookie, use that promo code Locked On to activate the dollar for dollar matching over on my bookie. You play, you win, and you get paid. Let's move on now to the which one are we going to?
Young Gun of the Night.
Yes, that's a good idea. It's Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr., who was fantastic again. Clearly a must roster guy. I don't think too many people got to have doubts in that, but I still get the question, oh man, I need to decide whether I'm going to grab Jackson off the waiver. Don't decide. Unless you're in an 8-team league, and even then, I think that Jackson has got significant top 50 upside for this, or maybe borderline top 50 upside. He is a top 100 player in only 25 minutes so far, and he had another real big game here today. 10 and 11 with 3 assists, 1 steal and 5 blocks, and that makes 14 blocks over his past 4 games. The shooting hasn't quite been there. He's not taking enough threes. That will start to come, but this is a guy who is going to put up some nice numbers. Really averaging 11 and 5 in 25 minutes with a steal, almost 2 blocks on 45 and 76. There is significant room for improvement there. You can see the usage going up, but more importantly, the percentages going up, the 3-pointers going up, and the rebound numbers going up, which should push him into that top 70, top 60 type discussion. He is got top 25 in the future written all over him as he becomes a potential 20 and 11 with 2.5 blocks. Think of Anthony Davis, maybe not quite that good. That is perhaps his absolute peak that he can get to. Again, Davis might be pushing it a little bit too far, but a guy that can push up to maybe 18 to 20 points and be obviously fantastic in those defensive numbers as well. So he gets, I believe, his second young gun of the night. Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. Your dud of the night is Marvin Bagley Jr. I think this might be his second or third one of these as well. He is not having quite the successful season that Jackson is. We know that Dave Yeager literally hates rookies and hates playing them. That was always going to be the concern with Bagley, is will he get enough minutes? And the answer to that question is that at this point a resounding no. 21 minutes, 7 points and 6 rebounds, no threes, no assists, no steals and 1 block. He is the 182nd ranked player so far this season, averaging 12 and 6. And this is the difference, okay? That's very similar to the numbers that Jeff Green is averaging, as I talked about before. And Green is into the top 120. But the fact is that Bagley's percentages at 50% from the field, which is not far off what Green is, but 60% from the line, it drags it down significantly, or more to the point, it pushes Green's up so much as well. That's where that big difference is lying, and that's why you could have a guy who's averaging the same of those more, I guess, visible stats in points and rebounds being just so far apart in terms of overall rankings. I don't really see much changing for Bagley. I think even if he got 30 minutes per night, he wouldn't be a top 100 guy because of the lack of threes, assists, steals, and blocks, and the poor percentages. It's always going to hold him back, and yeah, that's why I had him down, I think, as my seventh rookie in terms of dynasty rookie ranks. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander may have actually jumped ahead of Marvin Bagley at this point, but not a great night for him. Bielitsa still got that role there as the starting power forward, even though his role is diminishing marginally. Bagley was supposed to play some more center tonight, but with Costa Koufos out, Harry Giles got that role. So he's still rostered in 72% of Yahoo leagues, Bagley. In a 10-team league, no way. In a 12-team league, not a chance. In a 14-team league, it's pretty bloody close, and in a lot of cases, I'd say no, you're better off streaming that spot rather than having Bagley in there. He will be better than this at some point in his career, but of course, we aren't there yet. The plus-minus GOATs, the best net rating for the day was Maxi Kleber with a plus 104.4, while the worst net rating went to Johnny Simmons of the Orlando Magic. Kleber has been fantastic, especially defensively, providing a significant amount of blocks, which is something that he did last season, on and off in terms of, it happened some games and other times it wouldn't. But recently, it seems to be becoming more consistent this season for Kleber as he's taking these minutes. Now, with Dirk Nowitzki, I guess, at some point going to return, we just don't know when. It's hard to say how much this is going to stick with Kleber, but it's been solid so far this season for him, getting those blocks as one of the best, the best streaming type options for blocks on the waiver wire. Let's go through your injuries. Kyle Korver is going to miss Tuesday's game with a foot issue. That should open up some minutes for David Nwaba. It's nothing that's really going to trouble too much in terms of the fantasy landscape. Memphis with some updates as well. Chandler Parsons will be reevaluated in 2 weeks' time. Not that it really should matter, but it solidifies Kyle Anderson, who is a 12-team league guy. Go and grab him. Dylan Brooks is out with an MCL sprain. He's out for the next 6 to 8 weeks, and Jermichael Green is still a few weeks away from returning with his jaw injury. Lauri Markkanen still 2 to 4 weeks away from returning with that elbow injury. So it feels like the timetable keeps getting pushed out with Lauri not responding as we would like. Of course, Jabari Parker continues to start in his place, and I think Parker's going to leave the rotation by the time that both Portis and Markkanen are back. CJ Miles had to leave today's game with a groin injury. If he is out, Lorenzo Brown will be that guy for deeper leagues who would jump into that role. Probably also helps OG Anunoby, the Jedi.
Hello there.
And Pascal Siakam as well get a couple of extra minutes, which is awesome for those two guys, especially Siakam, who is having an excellent season. And then, of course, the big news of the day is Caris LeVert suffering a horrendous leg injury. We haven't heard any confirmation at this point, but I'll tell you right now, he broke his leg and he will not be back this season. Unless 99.9% certain that's what happened. The Nets organization, Kenny Atkinson's coming out. We don't want to talk about anything else. We don't want to talk about the result of this game. We just want to talk about Caris. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson was literally on the court, lining up while someone was taking a free throw and crying on the court. The whole arena went quiet. Everyone was crying in the locker rooms. The Nets were up. They lost after that to the Timberwolves. They were absolutely crushed. Jared Dudley's talking about, we can't wait to see LeVert back next season. He is done for this season. And that's a real shame because he was obviously killing it. He jumped up, landed on Jeff Teague's foot, and the ankle twisted up and the leg snapped. And you could see as the leg flicked back up, his ankle rolled, but it didn't snap back into place. It stayed at that angle, Gordon Hayward type style. So there is 0.01% chance that LeVert is coming back this season, which is terrible, terrible news for him, of course, and for the Brooklyn Nets because he was developing into a legitimate star. Now, the question's always going to come, and I apologize to people who think it's insensitive if I talk about who benefits from a LeVert injury, but this is a fantasy basketball podcast, so here you go. What I think is going to happen, and what happened in this game, is the second half they started Spencer Dinwiddie at shooting guard, or D'Angelo Russell at shooting guard, however when you put it, but it's hard to get a full grasp on it because Jarrett Allen was out, so Rondae Hollis-Jefferson was starting at center. I think you're going to get increased minutes to a number of players. Dinwiddie, the blue swimmer Alan Crabb, Jumpin' Joe Harris, Damari Carroll, and Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. They are all going to get those 30 minutes divided up amongst them, and then you'll get a couple of minutes maybe going to Rowdy Rodions Kurix, who should enter the rotation, and perhaps Shabazz Napier as well. So do any of these guys become must-roster players? I think if Dinwiddie and Hollis-Jefferson are on your wire, you'd go and add them. Now, Hollis-Jefferson is not a small forward. He played a little bit of small forward in his first season, but he is not a small forward. He's power forward and center, as we saw today. But the reason it does help him is because it takes minutes from Damari Carroll, who would cut into Hollis-Jefferson's time, and Damari has to take more of his minutes, then have to move over to small forward, allowing Dudley and Hollis-Jefferson to take nearly all of those power forward minutes between them. It could be a 26-27 to Hollis-Jefferson, 21 to Dudley split. So Hollis-Jefferson's still not out of the woods in terms of his poor performance and poor minutes distribution so far, but it does take that other part of the equation out, the Carroll coming in and taking the minutes, which had hurt Hollis-Jefferson, I think, pretty much out of the equation. Crabb has been terrible this season. I think that Harris and Dinwiddie are going to man those spots. You might see Crabb in there, but Alan Crabb, we've seen what happens when he plays 30 minutes a night. He is not a must-roster 12-team league guy. Joe Harris is a value-ish type of guy, and they're both three-point streamers, but they don't help in other areas, so they're okay to look at. As for Damari Carroll, I don't think he's coming in and playing 32 minutes a night. These are all guys who are probably going to be in that 120 to 150 range. Hollis-Jefferson, Harris, Crabb, Carroll. But Dinwiddie is the guy who gets the most interest, I think, and Hollis-Jefferson second. So that'd be the two guys I'd be looking to grab, with Harris, Crabb, and Carroll coming after them. I think Harris, Crabb, and Carroll are 14-team must-adds. Dinwiddie and Hollis-Jefferson 12-teamers, but still not where you have to go out. And someone tweeted at me, which I should get back to them, should I blow 50% of my fab budget on Rondae? I'm not so sure that that's what's necessary. I don't think that all of a sudden we're getting a top 70 guy here in Hollis-Jefferson because, again, he's playing exclusively as a power forward. He does get that extra bump, but before Carroll came back, he still wasn't doing enough in that position with Jared Dudley there. So that is somewhat of a concern for Hollis Jefferson. We'll see how this all plays out, and we wish the best for Caris and his recovery, and hope that it's not as bad as what it seems. But I just cannot see a way that this is not a fractured leg, and you just hope that there's no significant nerve damage or muscle damage, and it's just a clean break. That is the best result that you can hope for. But I don't think we need to. I don't think we need to hear too much more about this to confirm why or what's going to happen with this injury. It looks we're going to confirm it obviously, but it seems pretty cut and dry, unfortunately. Guys, the Locked On Podcast Network is doing unprecedented things on Twitter and on Instagram. On Twitter, you follow us at Locked On NBA Net to get all of the Locked On Podcast Network hosts, the local hosts, all in one feed. So breaking news when games are going on, injury reactions, all that sort of stuff will be concentrated on that one feed, Locked On NBA Net. And then on Instagram, go to Locked On NBA Net to give you the biggest stories using the Instagram stories, 1 minute cuts of the biggest news of the day. Make sure you follow Locked On NBA Net on both Twitter and on Instagram at Locked On NBA Net, as I already said. All right, let's go into these games now, break them down, and try and figure out what we can out of the 9 games that we had on Monday. All right, let's look at the first game, the Orlando Magic and the Washington Wizards. Another strong performance from Terry Ross, 21 points in 25 minutes, continuing to score and hit threes, and doing it well enough to consider using him in 12-team formats until John Isaac returns. DJ Augustin also had a strong game, 15 points with 4 assists. He's that fringe guy that you add and then you drop and then you add and then you drop. He's never going to really push past that, but he can have enough value if you grab him on the right day. Vooch was solid with 17 and 11, as was Aaron Gordon, who had 18 and 10 with 2 steals and 2 blocks, and it's always a good night when you can get Aaron Gordon contributing in defensive numbers in that sort of quantity, while Evan Fournier bounced back from a real stinker Sunday to drop in 20 points with 5 assists. On the Wizards, I don't know what is going on with Otto Porter. 22 minutes for Porter, 6 points with 2 triples and 4 assists, a minuscule 8.4% usage, and the minutes down under 25 for 3 consecutive games. There is a clear issue here with him and Scott Brooks, and I do not know what it is. I don't think anybody does. It's not like anyone else outside of Jeff Green was really firing up, but misusing Otto Porter was an issue we had with Scott Brooks all of last season, where he would be having a 12% usage rate for one of the best shooters in the NBA. Now, there's some of this blame gets placed on Otto as well for being perhaps a little bit passive, but this usage of him is absolutely nonsense. Now, they got the win, so it's hard for me to sit here and criticize Scott Brooks, but I will anyway. He is not a good coach, and this sort of decision-making is really, really baffling. Now, what do you do with Otto Porter if you have him in a fantasy league? I am still going to hold on, because this just doesn't make sense from so many different levels. I could be wrong in this, and maybe they just decide, well, you're going to be a 22-minute-a-night game. I don't think that's going to be the case. It wasn't like he shot poorly in this one. He was at 50% from 3. They were the only shots that he actually took, 2 of 4 from 3. Had 4 assists, the beginnings of a nice sort of line for Porter. But there is a clear issue between he and Scott Brooks, and we'll have to see how that pans out. Johnny Wall had 25 and 10, while Beal had a really solid 21, 8 and 4 with 2 steals and a block, and Dwight and Markieff both played well. 39 minutes for Markieff Morris, really tough to get a gauge on what his minutes are going to do on a nightly basis. 16 and 8 for Markieff. You'd love that. It just doesn't happen often enough. He is a fringe 12-team league sort of a player. Let's go on to that was the wrong button. Let's go on to the next game. We're looking at the New Orleans Pelicans with a huge win over the Raptors, 126-110 in Toronto. Tone Davis, another big assist game. Mind you, he had 25 and 20 as well, but 6 assists and 2 blocks for Davis. That is absolutely huge, and he is going to power back up to the top of the fantasy rankings. While Drew Holiday thriving as a point guard, 29 with 14 assists. We saw his assist rate bump up significantly last season when Rajon Rondo was out, and the same thing is repeating itself now with Elfrid Payton out. So when Payton returns, you would expect Holiday's assist numbers to drop back down, so bear that in mind. But his efficiency is unbelievable, the assists are fantastic, and he is locked in. Eton Moore was great, 30 points, 72% shooting. He is one of those guys, and I talk about it all the time, that when he has the good game, you look at it and you get really hard looking at it. You go, look at that, man, Eton Moore. But then you realize he does nothing else. It's almost like Justin Jackson, that you look at the numbers and you go, shit, that's fantastic, but it's coming on numbers which are unsustainable. Now, over the last 2 weeks, if you looked at the rankings, you go, shit, Eton Moore's a top 100 player. I've got to add him. But it's doing it on 60% shooting, there is absolutely zero way that he's going to be able to continue that. hitting 60% of his threes. Now, he is a good shooter. He can be a 40% three-point guy. He has been for 2 of the last 3 seasons. And he's been over 50% on his 2s in that time as well. But he's not going to remain a 60% shooter from 3 or 60% shooter from the field overall. He just won't do it. And then when you're averaging under 2 rebounds, under 2.5 assists and half a steal, your value is just going to tumble to be outside the top 150. So by all means, try it, ride it, do it now. It won't last. This sort of shooting, it's not a long-term thing for Etuan Moore. So great game here. It's just not going to continue. Cheick Diallo was great here, 8 and 6 in his 19 minutes with Nikola Mirotic out. I like Diallo. He's just not going to be a regular part of the rotation, while Randall saw his minutes bump up as well without Mirotic, 17 and 12. On to the Raptors side of things, Pascal Siakam. Well, I said that he's never not going to continue to shoot this well. Turns out I'm a liar, because apparently he just never misses anymore. 22 points on 12 shots. That's 67% from the field, 75% on his 2s. Not the rebounding weird, only 3 rebounds, but 1 steal and 3 blocks. He is absolutely locked in as the starting power forward. No one's denying that. He is a top 50 player this season, but as I said, there is going to be regression, because 72% from 2 is not going to stick. That is going to come down. Everything else about what he's doing seems about right. He's averaging 14 and 6 with 2 assists, a steal, and 0.6 blocks. But I just don't see that field goal percentage sticking up at 64%. It seems nonsense to keep him at that level, and there will be regression. You still have to grab him, you still have to hold him, of course, but just remember that this level is not sustainable.
I'm a fun guy.
Kawhi Leonard had a 111. He had 20 and 6 as well, while Serge Ibaka had 19 and 14, and his resurgence continues. It was a bad night for Kyle Lowry. Don't worry too much about it. 1 of 9 shooting for 4 points with 11 assists, while the Jedi, OG Anunoby,
Hello there.
17 points in 24 minutes, 3 steals. He is starting to show offensive flash, which, for those of you in Dynasty Leagues, should get you pretty excited. I think that in Dynasty formats, he is going to develop into a top 100 player at some point. Now, when that occurs is going to depend so much on what happens with Kawhi Leonard and where he goes. But Anunoby, over the last 4 games, has scored 17, 11, 16, and 17 points. He's had multiple steals in 2 of those 4 games as well, and the shooting has been at least 46% from the field. So it's a little bit under the radar, but he's pushing into 16 or even 14 team league territory at the moment, but it gives me great hope for him in the future. Jonas Valanciunas, one of his worst games there, 2 and 7 in 15 minutes. It was always going to be hard to keep up that insane level of production in limited minutes. I am still holding him though, because most times he has proven that he can do it. Just didn't do it in today's one. The Sixers and the Heat, bad loss for the Heat at home, 124-114. No Jim Butler, yet 35 and 18 for Embiid was huge. 13, 7 and 7 for Simmons. And Markelle Fultz, man, gross. 25 minutes for Fultz. He is definitely going to lose that starting spot to Jim Butler. Actually, I won't say definitely, but the starting lineup today was Embiid, Simmons, Redick, Babyneck, Wilson, Chandler, and Markelle Fultz. So Redick was back in the starting lineup. Someone is going to have to go for Butler, and I would assume it's Fultz. He had a double pump free throw that he claims slipped out of his hand. There is so much mental stuff going on with this guy. I still believe in his talent. I just worry that the mental stuff is never going to actually come good now, and I'm starting to really lose hope for him ever realizing his full potential, which is a shame for this guy. But of course, there's no need to have him in 12 or even 14 team leagues. And as I've said yesterday, it's weird to think that a team losing 2 starters and gaining 1 would actually be worse for him, but I think it actually is going to be. Furkan Korkmaz stepped up. He had 16 points with 4 rebounds, and the Moose, Mike Muscala, had 13 and 8 in 27 minutes. Muscala and Babyneck will try and approximate Sharic's production, but neither of them are going to be 12-team guys. They're going to be more 14-team league players. Well, Korkmaz was great. I think when Butler comes, he could be the guy that loses rotation minutes, or it's going to be Timothy John McConnell. Weirdly, Amir Johnson only 2 minutes, so he could be phased out of the rotation for Muscala being a permanent power forward, so a permanent center too. So keep an eye on that. Korkmaz, Muscala, Chandler. Korkmaz is a deeper league sort of guy, as is Landry Shamet, who started the second half for Fultz. And then you got Muscala and Chandler as those 14-team league guys. Onto the Heat, good bounce back from the iron shoulder. Goran Dragic, 22, 3 and 5, while Joshie Richardson had 17. And Kelly Olynyk, trying to work out when this guy's going to have a good game. It's impossible. 13 and 7 in 22 minutes for him, while Justice Winslow struggled along to 21 minutes, 5, 3 and 3. I do not believe that Winslow is a 12-team league guy. I've said that quite often, and these sort of up and down performances with everyone healthy is the reason why. Scooter Magruder, I'm still holding him, but 6, 2 and 2 in 26 minutes. When Wade, Waders and Johnson returns, I think he's going to struggle to remain a 12-team league guy, while Tyler Johnson and the Duke Wayne Ellington both had strong games, but I think so much of that is to do with the absence of Dwayne Wade, who is out for at least the next couple of games, tending to his new child. Congratulations to you, Dwayno. The Phoenix Suns and the Oklahoma City Thunder, an absolute blowout at the start. The Suns got it back close and the Thunder pulled away at the end. Just this Suns team can't get anything right, except TJ Warren all of a sudden is the best shooter of all time. 21 and 6 in 40 minutes with 2 steals and a block. He's at like 95% on free throws as well. He's hitting threes at a high level. I think there is going to be regression in his free throws, considering he was a 77% guy last season, and his overall shooting. But for now, he is a guy that you have to grab, and he has to be a 12-team league guy. Ryan Anderson out of the rotation again. This is what I want to see from McCall Bridges. 26 minutes, 13, 4 and 3, a steal and 2 blocks. Now, last game he played like 13 minutes, so we're still in watch mode for 12-team leagues, but he should be getting 26 to 28 minutes a night. Isaiah Kanan should not be playing. Devin Booker should be the point guard. You should be Booker, Bridges, Ariza, Warren, Ayton. That should be your guys getting 30 plus a night. We'll see how long it takes Kokoshkov to go to that, but keep an eye on McCall Bridges, a guy that is a real 1-1 guy. 1 3, 1 steal, 2 blocks. That's what he can bring. Going to be a real fantasy start at some point, and it's going to happen soon. Booker had 19, 4 and 6, while Ayton had 14 and 7, while Kanan, the aforementioned Kanan, had 1, 2 and 3 in his 23 minutes. Rashawn Holmes, if you did grab him in 12-team leagues, I'm pretty sure you can feel pretty confident moving on there, just the 13 minutes for Holmesy. On to the Thunder. Paul George finally got his shots to fall, 58%. 32 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists with 6 triples. Had struggled with efficiency early in the season, but is still hovering in that mid-second round range, who can really push up to the back end of the first round if the shots start to fall, although the assists are coming without Westbrook there, so that could drop back down. Schroeder, a guy, of course, it's a must roster while Westbrook is out. 25 and 9 with 4 steals. Who knows what happens when Russ comes back? Is he a 28 or a 24-minute guy? That's the difference. 24-minute, he's a 14-teamer. 28, then yeah, he is a 12-team league player. Steve Adams had 18 and 7 with 4 steals and 2 blocks. And Jeremy Grant, not a great performance from Granty, but he's been pretty solid, even though he is a low upside player. 10 and 8 in 31 minutes for Jez there for the Oklahoma City Thunder. The next game we take a look at is the Utah Jazz and the Memphis Grizzlies finally getting over the Grizzlies for the first time this season. Big game from Derek Favors, 28 minutes, 12 and 8 with 2 steals and a block. Looked like he did hurt himself early on, but came back in pretty quickly. The defensive numbers for Favors have been a real standout recently. I'm not sure they're going to be able to stick at the current level that they're at, and his minutes are always a concern. Today was really positive in that result. Over the last 2 weeks, he is averaging, he's the 75th ranked player, averaging a steal and 1.3 blocks on 63% shooting. So there's a couple of things there that are likely to drop: the steals and the field goal percentage, which would overall hurt his value. But he's hitting almost a 3 per game in that time as well. So adding that extra element, hitting them at 60%, of course, which is not likely to continue. But some interesting stream type value for Favors. But overall, I think he's a real back end 12-team league guy and not 100% a must roster guy. Jingle and Joe got smacked in the head, cut his face open, and then went the old AFL headband, which seemed to elicit a very, very humorous response on the old NBA Twitter, because you guys don't see it all the time. When someone gets a cut head playing Australian football down here, that's standard. You get the bandage and the tape, and you just wrap it around like a mummy on the top of their head, and you send them back out there to play. And I am 100% convinced that's what Ingles asked to do. Go, just get the tape, wrap it around my head, and go out there. The old Luke Hodge, Joel Selwood type of scenario. Just taped up his head, and people were absolutely loving it. And I didn't realize it was just a thing that was more exclusive to Australian football, but that happens literally almost every game. Anytime someone gets a cut on their head, it's just, let's just put the tape on their head, wrap it around, and out you go. He had 19, 6 and 5, Ingles. Ricky Rubio, the ravishing one, he fouled out, so only the 24 minutes, and Alec Burks picked up some of that slack. 10 points for Burksy in his 23 minutes, but of course that's just deeper league type stuff, while Jay Crowder struggled. 6 points in 27 minutes for Crowder. Still a 12-team fringe type of guy. Gobert also had 15 and 16 with 3 blocks. On to the Grizzlies. Conley and Gasol were great again, 24 and 4 for Mick, and 16 and 5 with 2 blocks for Gasol. Well, the Shelvin Mack, Garrett Temple, what the hell's going on scenario, both actually dropped off. 9 points for Mack, 6 points for Temple. I do not think they are 12-team league players. Kyle Anderson played 38 minutes. That is a step in the right direction. Now, his efficiency was shithouse. He was 3 of 11 from the field, but 7 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists, and 1 steal. He looks much more comfortable. JB Bickerstaff is relying on him more. If he is on the wire, I am adding Kyle Anderson without too much of a hesitation, I don't think. Anyway, the Brooklyn Nets and the Minnesota Timberwolves, of course, this game, it's soured by the LeVert injury, but D'Angelo Russell was great, 31 with 9 triples and 6 assists. Hollis Jefferson played well as well, 14, 6 and 5, 3 steals and a block, but remember, he did start at center and still only played 27 minutes despite LeVert's injury. Still, as I said earlier, a guy to grab. Jared Dudley played 28 minutes as well. Spencer Dinwiddie, 14 points in 28 minutes. And Damari Carroll, 24 minutes, 11 and 5. I think we can see Alan Crabb struggle. Joe Harris had a bad shooting night. It all ties in with what I said earlier on about where the value is in this LeVert injury. None of these guys are massive standout type players. On to the Timberwolves. No Jimmy Butler, so Karl Anthony Towns went bananas. 25 and 21, 2 threes, 1 steal, 2 blocks, 82% shooting. He is going to be a top 4 player by the end of this season. I feel pretty good about that now that Butler's ass is out of here. And is there any coach in the NBA that, regardless of what happens, a player coming back from injury, you just go straight back into the full minutes load? Now, I have questions. I don't like. It's a common thing with Tom Thibodeau. So what are these medical staff doing? Are they saying, Tom, you've got to ease this guy back in playing 27 minutes, and Thibodeau's going, nah, I'm good, and they just override him? Are these medical guys signing off on it? Are they only, in the interview process, did the doctors come in and go, well, Doc, you're just going to have to do what Tom says and just agree with him when he says that fatigue and injuries don't matter? Like, well, what is going on? Why do they continually do this? Don't know. Andrew Wiggins was battling a thigh injury, which he's already missed time for, played 38 minutes. 24 and 11 fatigue with 3 steals was great. He started alongside Derrick Rose, but we can't get a full picture of this rotation because Covington and Šarić aren't here yet. Taj Gibson did start, play 33 minutes and have 17 and 9 with a steal and a block, but his minutes are probably the most up for discussion here. And Rose had 23, 2 and 6, and he is a must roster guy, but again, he could be hurt by the arrival of Covington there as well. Josh Okogie had 8 and 4. Surely nobody is still holding on to him in 12-team leagues. The next game, we take a look at the Dallas Mavericks and the Chicago Bulls. It wasn't a great night for Luka Doncic. Someone tweeted at me, what do I offer to the manager who has Luka Doncic who's disgruntled? And if these people exist in your fantasy league, after one game they want to get rid of him, then I don't know what to say, man. Tell them to listen to this podcast because that's ridiculous. A bad shooting night from Doncic. 11 points on 12 attempts with 6 rebounds and 3 assists. But oh well, that happens. It's not the end of the world for Doncic. And also, I don't know if you guys saw the ludicrous take on our Twitter today saying that Doncic should have been a second-round pick and Alonzo Trier should have gone ahead of him. I don't want to give that guy publicity because that is one of the most nonsense things you will ever hear. As for Maxi Kleber, another 2 blocks for him. Talked about him earlier on. JJ Barea continues to eat into Dennis Smith's playing time. 14, 5, and 5 for Barea in his 24 minutes, while Smith only played 24 himself. So Barea is that assist stream guy. I'm not dropping Smith, but it's definitely something that I'm keeping an eye on. DeAndre Jordan missed both his free throws as well. So that's something to watch to see how those free throws proceed. The pencil, 23 points for Harrison Barnes, 5 rebounds. The value buoyed up by the 4 steals, which is not something that he usually does, but it's good to see the usage jump back up for Barnes here and put up that nice line. I think that's going to be more the exception than the rule for him this season. On to the Bulls, Zach LaVine, 26 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 steals is great, but the efficiency, it is going to start hurting at some point, and we're seeing that at the moment. The production's still really good, but 35% on 23 attempts is a real negative hole in that category for you. And again, he was shooting at a level which I felt was unsustainable, and I think we're going to see that start to come down. He's at under 39% over his last 7 games, still averaging really, really strong numbers, but that's going to become an issue at least until Portis and Markkanen or even Dunn return, and there'll be the trade-off for efficiency and usage. But his usage is sky high, and it is having an impact on his overall efficiency. Justin Holiday, so many minutes for this guy. 14 points, 3 triples, and 2 steals. If you need 3s and steals, he is a guy, and he is a 12-team league player because he is getting all the minutes he can handle. While the Block Panther, Wendell Carter Jr. struggled a little bit in this one. 7 and 10 with a steal and 2 blocks. If you're going to struggle and that's what you're going to do, I'm okay with it. Cameron Payne out of the rotation, while Ryan Archer-Jacquinot, 9, 5, and 6. That's in that DJ Augustine type area. Of course, he'll lose all that value when Chris Dunn returns, but for now, he's got some stream value. And Robin Lopez has taken over from Chris Felicio as the backup centre. A middling performance from Jabari Parker would be the kindest way for me to phrase that. The San Antonio Spurs and the Sacramento Kings, big win for the Kings, 104-99. Derek White played 26 minutes, had 11 with 5 assists and a steal, so it's not as good as his second game, but still pretty encouraging, and he is a 12-team league guy. While Rudy Gay returned, came off the bench, had 14 and 9 in 21 minutes with a block. I don't think it's going to be too long before he is back, getting at least more minutes than Dante Cunningham, who had 9 and 7 in 29 minutes. Bryn Forbes had 10 points in 29 minutes, not a 12-team league guy. Not a 14-team league guy either. He was borderline in that area before White returned, and now White is back, so I don't really see much happening there. While DeRozan had 23, 2, and 8, and Aldridge had 14 and 18 with 3 blocks and got that efficiency back, which was really hampering his rank to begin the season. Got to talk about Bogdan Bogdanovic for the Kings. 25 minutes for Bogdan, 22 points with 3 assists. If he is on your wire, he is a must-add player in 12-team leagues and probably 10-team leagues. He is going to push in and take Justin Jackson and Iman Shumpert's minutes, I believe, although in this one, it was Buddy Hield who suffered just the 26 minutes for Bud, and that's minutes under 30 in the last 2. Now, this is the worry with Jaeger, is that he was giving all the minutes to Hield and they were cruising, and now the last couple, it's been reduced. I'm sure that Bogdanovic and Hield can play together. So I'd like to see them do that. I'm not panicking on Hield, but it's something to watch. Bielitsa started out poorly, but finished strong, 11 and 6 in 27 minutes with 3 triples. He's not going to maintain that level that he had to start the season, as I touched on many times on this podcast. But he's still got that value. But if I had to make a drop of Bielitsa for Bogdanovic, I would make that drop, and I wouldn't feel too regretful about it. De'Aaron Fox, the shooting is going to come down. 7 of 9 in this game was excellent. 19, 3, and 7 with 2 steals, while Harry Giles came in and replaced Costa Koufos and had a nice quickfire 12 and 6. But don't overreact to that. He was literally just in the G League one game before and could very easily go back down there for the next one. The last game of the night, an overtime game, the Warriors lose to the Clippers 116-121. Klay Thompson had some hot streaks and cold streaks, 31 points on 31 shots, while Draymond returned from his injury, 6 and 14 with 3 steals. Quinn Cook, just the 22 minutes with Andre Iguodala handling the point guard roles down the end. 33 minutes for Iguodala, 14, 5, and 4. So it's going to be very interesting to see whether Iguodala actually does play on Tuesday. They do have a back-to-back. So it'll be interesting to see whether he gets that role there. But both he and Cook are strong adds for Tuesday with Steph Curry out as well. Damo Jones struggled. Jordy Bell, just the 2 minutes with what's his name? Draymond Green back.
You can call me Coach Steve.
Yep, he went away from Alfonso McKinney in this one with Sean Livingston back as well. So that McKinney value might be hurt a little bit by Shawnee's return. On to the Clippers. Boban Marjanovic, a terrible matchup for him, but he has gone from starting to out of the rotation. I have no idea what the point of starting him was at all. I think you should feel pretty confident about moving on from Boban. You need to make sure that Montrezl Harrell is rostered in your league. 32 minutes, 23 and 8 with 4 blocks on 77% shooting. A must-grab player. Lou Williams shot horribly, 28%, but 25 points, including some key buckets at the end, and 14 of 14 from the line, while Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a couple of bad turnovers at the end, but 18, 5, and 3, 2 steals and a block, is a must-roster player as well. Toby Harris, strong game from him, 17, 8, and 5. The Rooster, Danilo Gallinari, had 14 and 7, while Patrick Beverley, 4, 2, and 5, and it was he that lost those minutes to Lou Williams in this game. He is really a fringe 12-team guy. We don't know what Avery Bradley's return is going to do to this rotation, but it's gonna have an impact, and I don't think the impact is necessarily going to be on Gilgeous-Alexander, but we will have to wait and see on that one. Let's talk some DFS now for the day. The perfect lineup over on DraftKings. D'Angelo Russell, 49.5. Drew Holiday, 58.25. Kevin Durant, 71.25. And Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, 36.5. The table, Montrezl Harrell, 43.5. Jeff Teague, 47.25. Etuan Moore, 39.5. And Jaren Jackson Jr., 39.75 for a total of 385.5. And that cost $49,500. Over on FanDuel, Jeff Teague, 46.7, D'Angelo Russell, 45.4, Drew Holiday, 55.6. Schroeder, 50.5. Etuan Moore, 37.9. The Pencil, Harrison Barnes, 38.5. Hollis Jefferson, 39.7. Montrezl Harrell, 47.1, and Joel Embiid, 59.1, for a total of 420.5, and that cost the full $60,000 dues. Someone mentioned it to me this morning, I think it was, saying that, hey, you're doing FanDuel pricing 3 days a week, DraftKings 2 days a week, but every time you're doing it, it's the small slates for DraftKings and the large slates for FanDuel. So I am going to mix it up next week, and I'll probably do DraftKings pricing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and do FanDuel Tuesday, Thursday to try and alternate between the players that play on both of those sites. So today we are going to look at DraftKings. It is a really small slate, 3 games. The first game is the Hornets at Cleveland. The Hornets are favored by 6.5, and the total is 218.5. Kyle Korver is out, Kevin Love is out, Chetty Osman is out, Sam Decker is out. More big minutes again coming for the Padawan, Colin Sexton also. So Sexton at 5,100 on DraftKings, had 30 points last game. I think he is a strong cash play. As much as I don't like his fantasy game, I like him here. And I do like Jordy Clarkson at 5,700 as well. I'd prefer Sexton over Clarkson, but they've both got some really strong value here. Tone Parker was excellent last time for Charlotte. He's at 4,300. He had 34 points. I'm not sure how realistic that expectation is for Tone, but it's worth looking at. Well, Kemba Walker, I think, is overpriced. 9,700. There are just too many other value plays over on DraftKings to really consider him at that really extremely inflated salary. Nick Batum's at 5,800, a good matchup for Batum because Cleveland can't really defend anybody, but his production's been low, so I'd only really consider him in GPPs. And if you want a cheap GPP guy with Korver out, David Nwaba's at 3,200, who has done well previously against Charlotte, 22-point average against them at 3,200. There is something there. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist is out for Charlotte, so we're going to see Miles Bridges, but probably a little bit more Malik Monk and Jeremy Lamb as well. 5,000 for Lamb. He is a guy that can get you 25 pretty comfortably. A strong cash floor, I think, in this matchup. And then you got Hood at 5,400. Rocket Rodney, he is always a GPP type of a player. The small forwards, Miles Bridges is at 3,700. I'm expecting some pretty decent minutes here for Bridges. I think he is a pretty good tournament play, and also at that low price has cash value here with Kidd-Gilchrist out, while Marvin Williams at 42 could get a bit of a bump with MKG sidelined also. I'm not super high on Marv. And the big men, Larry Nance Jr. should start at power forward again, 5,200. He had 31 last game. Love that. I think a Sexton-Nance cash combination is really good value on DraftKings. I love the pricing of these guys. Bill Hernan-Gomez is at 35. I don't really see much there. Well, Tristan Thompson at 57. He is averaging over 40 DraftKings points the last 3 times out. With Nance pushing to power forward in this game, I think you're going to see big minutes from Thompson. I've got no problem with rostering him, and that sounds really, really dumb considering I'm not a massive Tristan Thompson fan, but hey, have at it. Cody Zeller's at 4,400. There are better center options available than Code Zeller. Onto the FanDuel side of things, much the same. Larry Nance is really strong at 59. Clarkson, Sexton are good value. I think Batum is a little bit stronger on FanDuel due to the pricing of some of the other players. And then you got Miles Bridges, who they've bumped all the way up to 5,200. So some aggressive pricing there. Lamb at 51 and Rocket Rodney at 54. They all move into the tournament type situations, whereas I think Lamb's more cashy than those other 2 guys that I just mentioned. The next game we take a look at is the Houston Rockets and the Denver Nuggets. Carmelo Anthony won't play. We don't know if he's been waived or anything at this point, but he is ill, so he won't be in this one. We've got PJ Tucker, who has also caught Carmelo Anthony's illness. He is questionable at this stage. Gerald Green is out with his ankle problem. Jim Harden's at 10,500. I absolutely love that for Jimmy. He dropped you 66 in that game against the Pacers. Looked more like himself. Happy to roster him. I think that's a strong cash play. Monty Morris was great for the Nuggets last time. Hard to rely upon him putting up those sort of numbers, but tournament-wise, there's something there. While Chris Paul at 83 found his shot. The price is low enough. I think that both Harden and Paul are pretty good options here. The Blue Arrow Jamal Murray at 6,600, not as strong as Harden or Paul, even in value for money stakes, but still something there. I'd lean more tournament with him. Eric Gordon just can't get anything right, but if the shots go in, a 40-pointer could come. But when Harden and Paul are there, I tend to stay away from Eric Gordon. The other shooting guards, Malik Beasley, Jim Ennis, Not much to see with them. Let's talk the Comet, Gary Clark, 3,700 for Clarko. He had 22 points last game in 33 minutes. He can block shots, he can get steals, he can rebound okay. I think at 3,700 there's some tournament upside, but I wouldn't feel super confident relying upon him in cash. But with no Mallow and no Gerald Green, I think he's going to have to play big minutes again. One show, Hernan Gomez should start once more. 3,800 for one show, always just a tournament guy. While PJ Tucker at 43, I feel nothing for that. Trey Lyles at 46, I think, has some cash value. He's getting you 20, 24, 25 points most nights, which is a decent enough floor, I believe. The big man, Capella's at 6,400. That's a really good price for Capella. He did bang his knee last game, but not on the injury report, so I think he's going to be good to go. I like the matchup there. While Nikola Jokic at 9,400 has put up big games the last couple. A 40-pointer could be coming. I think there are better ways to spend your money than doing it there. Like, I'd rather spend big on Harden than spend big on Jokic, and then go with, say, Tristan Thompson at your center or Larry Nance. But Jokic is still looking all right. Gaz Harris and Paul Millsap, I think they're more tournamenty type of guys, but I think this game really exudes quite a lot of value over on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Jokic and Harden are cash plays at 97 and 11.5 respectively. Gaz Clark at 51, that's a big price boost there. Only looking in tournaments, and even then not too closely. One show at 38, the same sort of scenario. Chrissy Paul at 8,800, I think is solid enough. Gaz Harris at 66, can't get anything going at the moment, Gaz, so it's pretty tough to rely upon him at this point. Let's go to the last game. It is the Atlanta Hawks and the Golden State Warriors. A back-to-back for the Warriors. No spread or no total. Also, no Steph Curry for the Golden State Warriors. We don't know what Durant or Draymond or Clay or Iguodala or Livingston are going to do, so there could be some opportunities open up here. Quinn Cook at 5,500 was a stinker today, but I'm happy to go back with him again with the potential that Iguodala plays at least limited minutes in a potential blowout. I think he is strong, while Trae Young at 7,200 is also a very, very good point guard option in my opinion. The shooting guards, or other point guards, Jeremy Lin at 3,800, putting up some strong numbers recently. Did struggle the last time out, but I think he is an interesting tournament guy on a weird 3-game slate. Your shooting guards, Kent Bazemore revenge game, 5,900 for Bazemore. Big game last time out, absolutely no worries with using Baze. I think he's in a pretty strong spot, averaging 30 points over the last 3 games. Kevin Huerter at 3,300, Iguodala at 38. If Iguodala plays, I think that's interesting as a tournament, but I would have no value in looking at Andre for cash because I do think limited minutes could be coming. Klay Thompson at 6,800 has been a little bit better lately without Steph. Could be in play here as well. Probably better options out there, but that's a pretty nice price for Klay Thompson. The artist formerly known as Torian Prince is at 6,100. I'm more than happy to use Prince there. He had 37 last game, strong production at that sort of a price. DeAndre Bembry at 39 is your tournament guy, but the production for him has trended down. While 11,200 for Kevin Durant, he should be able to pop a 60 on the Hawks' head in even 3 quarters. So I think that he is worth a look in cash. I'd have him behind Jokic, I'd have him behind Harden as your big dollar guys, but still an option there as well. Then we've got the big men, Alex Len at 4,400. The Undertaker, Dwayne Dedman, is out, so Len at 44 is a very, very good cash play. Another reason why I'd like to go with a big guy like Harden or a big money guy like Harden over, say, Jokic, because I can put someone like Len or Tristan Thompson or Nance into that center position. The Wizard, Omari Spellman at 4,500, struggled last game. Tough opponent here. I'd probably end up fading. Well, Draymond at 8,200, that's too expensive for Green, in my opinion. Then you've got Looney, Jones, maybe Miles Plumlee. Probably not, though. None of those guys really appeal too much, and we saw how little Jordan Bell was used today with Draymond Green back in action. Let's look on FanDuel. Similar sort of story. Draymond at 82, given the pricing of some other guys, is more in play on FanDuel. Cook at 5,800 and the Wizard at 44. He's more of an upside guy. Also, Alex Len at 5,000 is looking pretty tasty on FanDuel, where there are limited options compared to some of the other sites. Let's have a look at the studs and the value plays on DraftKings. Harden is my best stud at 10.5, and my value guy is Larry Nance at 5,200. On FanDuel, we're looking at Jokic at 97. You could easily throw Harden into that mix there too. My value is Nance at 59. Yahoo, my stud is Jokic at 38. And my value is minimum salary Comet Gary Clark at $10. On Moneyball, Chris Paul is my stud at 88. And my value is Nance at 6,000. And on DraftStars, my stud is Harden at 19,270. And my value is Geordie Clarkson at 9,220 as well. There's only 3 games on, and at this point, there's only spreads for one, so no point me doing a best bet on today's show. Make sure you are checking out this podcast, and you've checked it out. Make sure you subscribe. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, and on Spotify. And on YouTube, throw me a subscribe, hit a thumbs up, leave a comment, 5-star ratings on all the other platforms. You know that's a great way of helping the show out. Follow Locked On Network at Locked On NBA Net as well. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Jeremy Lin.